all DMs and D&D groups are different, so there's no one shoe that fits all. However, taking a look at professional DMs like Brennan Lee Mulligan can give you a few ideas about how to streamline your prep time while keeping your games entertaining and enjoyable. The first thing that Brennan does, though not all the time, is plan full sessions for different pillars of D&D. Specifically, he will do one session that's just full-on socializing and exploration. Then the next session, he will just do full combat. Now, this won't work for you if your combat tends to be on the quicker side, but for a lot of tables out there, combat can take a long time, like the better part of a full session, which can be stressful if you had other things planned out and means that you usually end up either rushing the combat or rushing the other scenes around it. By alternating between a full session of non-combat and a full session of combat, prep time becomes a lot easier because you just have to focus on that one particular thing, and you get to give those combat cliffhangers at the end of every other game. And if you're not interested in full sessions of combat, just figuring out how your players enjoy their games, like how much of each pillar do they like. Maybe it's 30% combat, 70% roleplay, maybe it's the other way around, maybe it's all roleplay. Just figuring out exactly how much they want in each session in general will help immensely with prep because you'll know what to focus on most. Next up is being okay with improvising. Obviously, this is something that Brennan is a master of, given his background as an improv comedian. But by improv here, I don't mean be hilarious off the cuff or create exceptional stories and worlds at the drop of a hat. What I mean is that when you prep for your D&D games, prep in bullet points, not paragraphs. And then be okay if the game does not go exactly as you were planning, because it never does. Nothing will speed up and make prep time more efficient for you than not caring what happens from minute to minute in your games. Still plan the overarching story and encounters and the NPCs they'll meet and big stuff, but just be okay with winging it in between those moments. And it's not an easy thing to do, but trust me, best way to get better at your improvisation skills is to just do it. Try improvising more and more in your D&D games, and eventually it will get easier and easier. But one thing Brennan seems to have mastered when it comes to prepping is balance. You see, the two extremes are on one side doing barely any prep and just relying entirely on improv, and on the other side doing just way too much unnecessary prep. One of these extremes can lead to a hollow world with inconsistencies and a lack of cohesion, and the other extreme can lead to just a lot of wasted time and can sometimes lead to unintentional railroading and taking away player agency, because it would be insane for you to just throw away the 15 hours prepathon you did. So what is the balance? Well, it depends on you, and of course it depends on your table. I did a survey where I asked DMs how long they typically spend on an average game prepping, and it really surprised me. Right now it's like 47% of people spend over 3 hours prepping for a game, but then you had some people who also spent less than 30 minutes. I personally spend between like 1 hour and 2 hours. So there's no right amount of time, because you might just love the actual improving and you like not doing barely any prep and seeing where the game takes you. Or you might be using like a module or an adventure book that does most of the work for you. On the other side of things, you might just really love prepping. You might really love immersing yourself in the world, thinking about the politics, building up towns and cities and NPCs. So you're gonna spend longer prepping, not because you need to, but because you enjoy doing it. I would say no matter how long you actually take, the trick is prepping efficiently. And this can be done in many ways. Maybe you treat every session like a play, and it has a 3-act structure, and you know exactly how to structure your games because you do it over and over again, and it gets faster and faster. Or maybe you only ever create and prep reusable scenes, so that if your players decide not to go into that room this time and find that encounter, you can just reskin that encounter and use it later down the line. So you're never actually wasting time, you're just moving stuff about. Brennan's system for efficiency is that he does a lot of prepping, but just for like what he needs to feel comfortable improving, if that makes sense. So like, if he's going to create a town with 10 buildings in it, he only needs to prep what like 6 of those buildings are. Maybe put an encounter here or there, plan the NPCs out, plan the interiors, plan missions and stuff for those 6 buildings, because he knows the other 4 buildings, he's comfortable winging that. He puts in just enough prep work that he knows that he can fall back on that and improv the rest. But how does Brennan plan such vivid worlds? Well, that's easy. He takes inspiration from other media. His campaign, Fantasy High, took inspiration from 80s school movies, and his campaign, The Never After, took inspiration from fairy tales. Don't be afraid to do the same thing when prepping your stories, whether that be inspiration for towns, for NPCs, even plot points. Take what works from other media and put your own twist on it and make it your own. Having a world so inspired by something else like this, if your players are aware of the inspiration, means that they can much better picture everything in their mind because they've got a basis to understand it all. And it means themes for you to explore will come much more easily. And next up, let's talk about Brennan's not so secret. When it comes to prepping for his D&D games, he makes it all about the characters. Try and have planned moments or scenes for your players' characters that means something to them. Brennan must constantly prep for these character moments with his players. Then when it happens, he asks his players' characters how they feel in that moment and then asks them what they're going to do about it. And the players love this because they're not just there to be taken on a story, a world with adventure which they're just kind of watching from the sidelines. They want to be the story. It's something I've started doing in my games. Like when I'm prepping, I sit down and I write down each one of my players' characters and I figure out something for each one of them to do that session. Each one of them is going to have a moment, a plot point, is going to have their own story, move forwards in some way. And it's been going down a storm. But all this will only get you so far. You need to create compelling NPCs and worlds, as well as getting your players to create complex, compelling characters. And there's no better place to find out exactly how to do that than the game Baldur's Gate 3 and this video here. Thanks for watching.